Kala was born on a night when the sky looked like a bowl of burning coals. The wind carried a strange hum, and the midwives whispered that the ancestors were walking close. When the infant came into the world, she did not cry. She simply opened her eyes, wide, clear, ancient, and looked at the world as though she remembered it. And then they saw it. On her tiny palm, glowing faintly like an ember about to spark, was a mark shaped like a rising flame. The midwives gasped. One dropped the cloth she was holding. Another backed away slowly, muttering prayers under her breath. Kala's mother, exhausted but smiling softly, reached for her daughter. "Do not fear her," she whispered. "This child belongs to the light. But people fear what they do not understand." Within days, rumors spread through the village like dust through an open window. A cursed child. A spirit's daughter. A sign that fire would soon visit the land. No one listened to the new mother's calm voice. They only saw the mark, and their fear grew teeth. Then illness struck. Kala's mother fell into a sudden fever and never recovered. Her father remarried too quickly, choosing a woman with a beautiful face and a heart carved from ice. From the moment she entered the home, the stepmother's eyes lingered on the baby with a mixture of fear and disgust. "A child with such a mark should not be wandering in the open," she said. "People talk. They will talk about us." Kala's father, broken by grief and desperate to keep peace, agreed. That was the beginning of Kala's life behind walls. When other children played under the sun, Kala watched the slices of daylight from behind the wooden shutters. When festivals filled the air with drums and laughter, she listened from the shadows of a back room. Sometimes she pressed her glowing palm against the wall and imagined freedom on the other side. Her stepmother made sure no one saw her. "She is weak," she told visitors. "She is sickly. She cannot be exposed to the sun." Lies layered on lies until even Kala wondered what was wrong with her. But the world has a strange way of remembering those who are meant to be remembered. As Kala grew, the mark on her palm pulsed gently whenever she felt strong emotions. When she cried, the air warmed. When she laughed, lamps flickered. When she felt lonely, tiny sparks danced at the tips of her fingers. Her stepmother noticed, and feared. One evening, when Kala was barely 7 years old, she wandered too close to the open doorway. A passing villager caught sight of her glowing palm and froze. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then the villager whispered a single sentence that would echo for years. "The marked child lives." By nightfall, the village was buzzing. People whispered that the girl the elders feared had grown. That the child with the ember mark still breathed. That perhaps the stories were true after all. Kala became a secret the villagers discussed quietly, a mystery hidden behind a compound wall. Her stepmother panicked. "Keep her inside. Shut the windows. No one must know she is here." Kala's father obeyed, again choosing silence over truth. But children cannot be hidden from destiny. At night, Kala would sit by the window, listening to the world she had been denied. She heard footsteps, laughter, distant music. She heard voices calling names, never hers. She pressed her glowing palm against her heart and whispered to herself, "Do I matter? Does anyone know I am here?" Sometimes she swore she heard an answer, soft as falling ash. "The world knows." Because beyond the walls that confined her, rumors only grew. Stories spread from traveler to traveler. Tales of a hidden child with a fire mark on her hand traveled across villages like drifting smoke. Some said she was cursed. Others said she was blessed. But all agreed on one thing. Her name would not be forgotten. Kala did not know it yet, but the world waited for her. The mark on her palm was not a curse. It was a promise. A promise that light, no matter how tightly trapped, will always find a way out. Even a flame hidden in darkness still glows. Kala turned 11 the year the traveling caravans came. From inside her dim room, she heard drums thundering, dancers laughing, children shouting with excitement. She rushed to the wooden shutters and pressed her face against them, hoping to see just a sliver of the world. Her stepmother caught her. A sharp slap cracked the air. "Do you want people to see you?" she hissed. "Do you want them talking about us again?" Kala held her cheek and stared at the floor. The glowing mark on her palm flickered like a frightened flame. Her stepmother grabbed her wrist, squeezing hard. "This," she said, pointing at the mark, "is trouble. Keep it hidden. Keep yourself hidden." Kala nodded. She always nodded. She always obeyed. But the world outside felt louder that day, as though calling her name. That night, long after the drums faded, Kala sneaked out of her room. She crept to the backyard, where shadows stretched like sleeping giants. She looked at the sky, the first time she had truly seen it. A sky full of stars, bright and endless. She raised her marked palm toward them. The stars seemed to brighten in response as if greeting an old friend. A soft gasp escaped her lips. Then a voice whispered behind her. "Child, who are you?" Kala spun around. A caravan storyteller stood there, holding a lantern shaped like a crescent moon. Her robe shimmered with dust and starlight. Her eyes were wide, not with fear but wonder. Kala stepped back, covering her hand. I'm nobody." The woman stepped closer, lowering the lantern. "No one with a mark like that is nobody." Kala froze. Someone had seen her. Not in secret. Not by accident. But truly seen her. The storyteller knelt and gently reached for Kala's hand. She didn't touch it, she simply looked at the glowing ember-shaped mark. "My grandmother told tales of this," she whispered. "A child born when the sky burns red. A child hidden from the world but remembered by fate." Kala's breath trembled. "I'm not special. My stepmother says I bring trouble." The woman shook her head slowly. "Trouble follows those who fear the truth, not those who carry it." From inside the house, Kala heard footsteps. Her stepmother's voice called angrily. The storyteller stepped back into the darkness. "Remember this, child, you were not born to hide. The world remembers your name even if people pretend not to." Then she vanished into the night like drifting ash. Kala stood alone, her palm glowing brighter than ever. The next morning, chaos erupted. Someone in the caravan had spoken to someone else. Someone whispered about a girl with a burning mark. Someone remembered the old rumor. By midday the entire village buzzed. Is it true? Is the marked child alive? Was she hidden all these years? Kala's stepmother stormed through the house, furious and terrified. "You. What did you do?" Her fingers dug into Kala's arms. "Did anyone see you?" Kala wanted to lie. She wanted to say no. But the truth glowed on her palm. I met someone," she whispered. "A storyteller." Her stepmother's face went cold. "Your foolishness will ruin us." She dragged Kala through the doorway, shoving her into the same small room she had been locked in most of her life. But something had changed. Kala did not feel trapped anymore. She felt awake. That night, she pressed her glowing palm against the window and whispered the words she had been too afraid to say. "My name is Kala. I am here." The wind stirred. The walls felt thinner. The world felt closer. And far beyond her room, far beyond the village, far beyond the reach of darkness, the world whispered her name back. Days passed, but the village did not settle. Whispers traveled faster than smoke, curling through doorways, drifting across market stalls, slipping into late-night conversations. "Did you hear? The marked girl is alive. They said she glows. No, she brings storms. She should have been hidden forever." Every rumor returned to Kala's doorstep like shadows looking for a place to settle. Her stepmother grew harsher. "Keep your head low. Do not speak. Do not look at anyone." She watched Kala like a guard watching a prisoner, terrified someone would glimpse the secret she had spent years burying. But Kala's mark had grown brighter since the night she saw the stars. She could hide her hand beneath cloth, but she could not hide the strange news stirring inside her. Something bold, restless, awake. One afternoon, while the sun burned low and red, Kala heard children playing outside the fence. They were chanting her name in a teasing rhythm. "Kalea, the girl with the burning hand. Kalea, the ghost in the walls." Kala pressed her forehead against the wooden planks. Their voices didn't sound cruel, just curious, imperfect, human. The kind of voices she had never been allowed to play with. For a heartbeat, she imagined stepping outside, running with them, laughing with them, existing. But then her father's voice echoed from her memories, the last words he had spoken before he died. "Hide her. If anyone sees, they will take her." Kala had never understood what they meant. Warriors? Kings? Spirits? Fate? Or the village itself? That night the whispers grew louder. She woke to the sound of her stepmother arguing with the chief's messenger outside the gate. "You cannot hide her forever," the man said. "The elders want to see the girl." "My daughter is sick," her stepmother snapped. "She cannot be seen." "I have my orders," the messenger insisted. "Tomorrow. Bring her." Kala sat on her floor, heart pounding. Her stepmother entered moments later, eyes blazing like coals. "This is your fault," she hissed. "You should have stayed invisible." Kala wanted to shrink, but something inside her stood tall. "I didn't ask to be born with a mark." Her stepmother froze. Then, for the first time, she looked at Kala not with anger, but with something close to fear. "You don't understand what that mark means," she whispered. "You don't understand why your father hid you. Then tell me, Kala said quietly. But her stepmother only shook her head and backed away as if Kala's voice had heat. The next morning the chief's men arrived. The entire village gathered in the courtyard. Women balancing baskets on their hips. Men whispering into their beards. Children climbing onto shoulders to get a better look. They had all come to see her. Kala's stepmother tried one last time to stop it. She is sick, she told them. She is weak. But the chief lifted his hand. Bring the girl. The crowd parted like a river opening to reveal a dangerous stone beneath the surface. Kala stepped through wrapped in a shawl, her eyes lowered. Her heart drummed against her ribs, but the wind in the village felt different today. It brushed against her cheeks like recognition. She stood before the elders. Lift your hand, one elder said. Her stepmother mouthed, don't. But Kala slowly extended her palm. The shawl slipped away. Gasps filled the air like sparks in dry grass. Her mark glowed, faint, trembling but alive. An old woman stepped forward, leaning on her stick. I have seen this mark, she whispered. Long ago. Before the sky burned red. Before her father. Her stepmother interrupted, voice sharp with panic. She is nothing special. It is just a birthmark. But the wind stirred. Dust lifted lightly around Kala's feet, swirling like a small dance. The old woman leaned closer. Child, when did it begin to glow? Kala swallowed. Since the night the storyteller saw me. Murmurs rippled. Ah, it awakened. The mark responds to being witnessed. She is not meant to be hidden. Her stepmother shook her head fiercely. No. She must stay inside. That is how her father wanted it. The chief turned to Kala. Why did he hide you? I don't know, she answered softly. No one ever told me. The chief's expression softened, but only for a moment. Then tonight, he said, we consult the ancestors. The crowd scattered slowly, some staring in awe, others in fear. Kala stood alone in the courtyard while her stepmother stormed ahead, furious. She didn't follow immediately. She lifted her palm, watching the faint glow shimmer. The wind answered before she could whisper a single question. A gentle voice brushed her ear, not spoken but felt. They hid you, but the world remembers. Kala's breath caught. She looked around but no one was near. Only the wind. Only the world. Only her name, carried softly in the air like a promise waking from sleep. The world is vast, but stories travel faster than feet. Long before Kala ever stepped outside the walls that trapped her, her name escaped first. It started as nothing more than a whisper. A group of hunters from a far-off village returned home saying they saw a strange light in the forest near the hill where Kala lived. They swore it wasn't fire but something softer, pulsing like a heartbeat. One hunter claimed he saw a hand glowing like ember, but when he stepped toward it, the light vanished as if swallowed by the trees. People laughed at him. But the story still traveled. Travelers carried it to markets, swapping it for gossip and grain. Women selling baskets repeated it to customers. Men at the river argued about it. Elders pretended not to care, but they leaned in whenever someone mentioned a glowing hand. By the time the tale reached the third village, it had grown legs and wings. Some said the girl could heal fevers with one touch. Others swore she set wet wood on fire with her palms. A few whispered that she wasn't a girl at all, but a restless spirit roaming in a human body. And along with the stories came a name, soft at first, then confident, then unstoppable. Kala. The firebender. Kala. The girl whose hand glows. Kala. The one hidden by fear. Her name traveled faster than the truth ever could. Meanwhile, in the lonely house on the hill, Kala's stepmother Manka and stepsister Rina lived with increasing terror. Each rumor that reached them felt like a drumbeat of doom. One afternoon, as a pair of merchants were passing by, Manka overheard them murmuring about the glowing girl. The moment she heard Kala's name, she slammed the window shut, her hands trembling. We must hide her better, she hissed. People are beginning to search for her. Rina's usual arrogance disappeared. Her fingers shook as she braided her hair. But she is already locked away, she whispered. How do you hide someone nobody is supposed to know exists? Manka paced the room, her eyes wild. You don't understand, she snapped. If people believe she has a gift, they will come here. They will question us. They may take her. They may accuse us of keeping a spirit child captive. Or worse, they may say we are witches. Rina's voice cracked. Why can't the world forget her? We made sure she stayed out of sight. Manka shut her eyes, breathing hard. The more we hide her, the bigger she becomes. And the whispers kept growing. During market season, a caravan of merchants stopped near their hill to rest. One merchant, a man who had traveled across kingdoms, began telling them a story he had heard far from this land. He said a girl was born with hands kissed by lightning, protected by spirits who placed fire in her palms so no evil could touch her. Manka froze behind the wall, clenching her fists. Rena covered her mouth, shaking. "Do you hear that?" Rena whispered. "They're turning her into a legend." "Legends draw seekers," Manka muttered, fear hollowing her voice. "And seekers bring danger. They will not stop until they find her." That night, they tried to stay calm, but their shadows twitched on the walls like frightened animals. Every faint sound outside made them jump. Every whisper of wind sounded like a stranger approaching. And while the world buzzed with stories, Kala sat alone in her small, dim room, unaware of the hurricane her existence had stirred. She didn't know that across villages, children were chanting her name in playful songs. She didn't know that grandmothers were telling tales of a fire girl who might visit bold hearts. She didn't know that warriors argued whether she was a blessing or a threat. To her, there was only the familiar darkness, the steady thump of her own lonely heartbeat, and the soft glow that sometimes flickered in her hand, her only comfort, her only companion. She touched the wall beside her, wondering if she would ever walk beyond it, wondering if the world even remembered she existed. But outside, in markets, in forests, by fires, in doorways, her name was growing louder, heavier, unforgettable. The girl hidden away from the world had become a story the world refused to forget. And soon those whispers would come knocking. The day Kala found the journal began like every other, quiet, lonely, and colorless. Morning light slipped through the cracks of her small room, brushing against the walls that had held her prisoner since childhood. She had grown used to the silence, used to the dust, used to the idea that this was all life had for her. But the world shifts on strange days. It started when a loose wooden plank beneath her sleeping mat shifted under her foot. At first, she thought it was just another sign of the old house rotting from neglect. But something about the hollow sound made her pause. The floorboards in this room creaked all the time, but this was different. It was a softer, deeper echo. She knelt. Slowly, she slid the mat aside, revealing a thin crack she had never noticed. Her fingers dug along the edges until the board gave way. Beneath it was a dark space, not large but hidden with intention. Inside lay an object wrapped in faded cloth. Kala hesitated. Every secret in this house was dangerous. Every truth her stepmother hid came with a price. Still, something inside her pulled her forward, a whisper older than her fear. She lifted the bundle from the hollow and unfolded the cloth. A journal. One. Weathered, but carefully preserved. On the front, written in a delicate hand. "For my daughter Kala. When the time is right." Her breath caught. Her real mother. Her fingers trembled as she opened the cover. The first page was filled with flowing handwriting, warm, steady, full of life. It was like hearing a voice she had never known but somehow remembered. "My Kala. If you are reading this, then your gift has awakened. And with it, the truth you deserve to know." Kala pressed her palm over the page. A soft warmth stirred within her glowing hand, as if responding to the ink itself. She read on. The journal spoke of a lineage she had never heard of. The protectors, an ancient bloodline charged with guarding villages, forests, and the balance between the human world and the spirit world. They were chosen not for power but for compassion. Not for strength but for responsibility. They were people who stepped between danger and the innocent, who carried gifts meant to shield, not to harm. The journal described the mark, her mark. A pale symbol on her palm that pulsed with faint light. A mark she had spent years hiding. A mark that made Manka curse her, Rena mock her, strangers fear her. But here, written in her mother's hand, the mark is not a curse. It is a calling. Our gift answers to the heart, not to anger. You were born to protect, not destroy. Kala's eyes burned. All these years locked away. All these years believing she was dangerous, unnatural. All these years thinking something was wrong with her. But she was never the danger. She was the protection. Her mother wrote of the day Kala was born. How the sky had lit with a strange shimmer. How elders traveled for hours just to confirm the birth of a new protector. How Kala's first cry caused the lanterns to brighten. It was a day filled with joy. And then her mother wrote of the day everything changed. A sickness swept through the land, one that took her mother first. Fearing that people would try to claim Kala, control her, or turn her into a weapon, her dying mother left her one final instruction to the healer who delivered Kala. Hide her. Not because she is a danger, but because the world is. But the healer had died soon after. And Kala's stepmother, Manka, had taken her instead, filling her life with fear, not protection. With shame, not understanding. Kala's throat tightened as she turned the pages, consuming every word like a starving soul. Her mother had written about the ancient protectors. Those who could summon light to guide lost travelers. Those who could warm the dying with a touch. Those who could calm storms and chase away shadow spirits. Those who stood between villagers and the terrors of the night. And then something that made Kala's heart stop. Your gift awakens when you feel deeply, love, fear, or sorrow. Your hand glows not because you are broken, but because you care. She closed her eyes, remembering moments when her palm had flickered, when she cried alone in the dark, when she longed for freedom, when she wished she had someone to hold. Her power had been responding all along. Tears slipped down her face. She was not a monster. She was not a curse. She was not a secret meant to be buried. She was a protector. Her mother's final entry was written in shaky handwriting, as if she knew her time was ending. One day you will be found, not by those who fear you but by those who need you. When that day comes, do not hide your hand. Hold it high. Let the world see the light that belongs to you. Kala's tears fell onto the page, blurring the words. She held the journal close to her chest. For the first time in her life, she felt warmth that wasn't her own gift. It was her mother's memory wrapping around her like a hug she never received. A sharp knock echoed from beyond the door. Manka's voice, cold and irritated. Kala. Why is there noise in there? Kala didn't respond. For once she didn't shrink back. For once she didn't hide her glow. She looked at her palm. The light flickered stronger than ever, warm, steady, brave. Everything she thought she knew about herself had been shattered and rebuilt in a single hour. She was hidden not because she was weak, not because she was cursed, but because she carried a power the world was never meant to own. A power the world would one day need. And as Kala held the journal to her heart, she whispered, I know who I am now. The storm arrived the way storms often do in the lowlands, fast, angry, and uninvited. It swept across the village with a roar that made even the strongest walls tremble. Thunder cracked like the sky was splitting apart, and lightning tore jagged scars of white across the darkness. Most people ran indoors, barring doors, shuttering windows, whispering prayers. But one person moved in the opposite direction. Kala stood at the threshold of the small room that had been her world for almost her entire life. Rain battered the roof. Wind pushed through the cracks. The journal lay pressed against her chest beneath her shawl, warm from her touch. She had not slept since finding it. Every word inside it still burned inside her, glowing with the same quiet fire as the mark in her palm. She understood now. And understanding left only one path. Outside her door she could hear Manka and Rina arguing, voices sharp with fear, with anger, with control beginning to slip. The rumors spreading in the villages, the whispers about a girl whose hand glowed in the dark, they had reached even this house. Kala knew she would not be allowed to stay much longer. Suspicion had already begun curling like smoke under every door. If she stayed, they would bury her again. If she left, she would walk into a world she had never seen. The wind howled, shaking the shutters. The storm made the world outside look wild and alive. And somehow it felt like a sign. Her mother had written that storms respond to protectors, that lightning sharpens their senses and wind clears their paths. Kala stepped forward. The floor creaked beneath her as she crossed the room. She lifted the latch with steady fingers. The door opened a crack at first, pushing back against the wind. But Kala pushed harder, and the storm rushed into the room like a living thing, cold, fierce, freeing. Thunder rolled above her. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. Everything she knew was behind her, cruel, painful, suffocating, yes, but known. The world beyond this door was vast, dangerous, full of unknown people and unknown threats. She had never walked beyond the outer fence alone. She did not know which path led to safety or which led to ruin. Her heart pounded. She almost closed the door. Almost. But then lightning split the sky. And for a moment, the world lit up so brightly she could see the entire path that led away from the house. The muddy road, the tall trees, the distant ridges. The light did not frighten her. It felt like a hand pointing the way. Her mother had said the gift awakens when the heart chooses courage. Kala chose. She lifted her chin, stepped into the storm and let the door slam shut behind her. Rain hit her face like sharp needles, cold, stinging but cleansing. Mud swallowed her bare feet with every step. Wind whipped her shawl against her body. But Kala pushed forward, the journal clutched tight beneath the fabric, her fingers pressing into it like it was the only solid truth she had left. Behind her she heard shouting. Rina's voice first, shrill with disbelief. She's gone. Mother. She ran into the storm. Then Manka's voice, frozen and furious. She won't survive out there. Let her run. Kala did not look back. Another strike of lightning lit up the sky, illuminating the path ahead once more. It almost felt playful, as if the storm itself had decided to accompany her. The thunder no longer terrified her, it answered her heartbeat. Her glowing palm tingled against the journal. Step by step she moved farther from the house. Step by step from everything that had suffocated her. Step by step into the world her mother had always intended her to enter. As she reached the end of the village fence, the wind tore across her shoulders, almost pushing her forward. For the first time she felt the world open around her, wide, deep, mysterious. She felt the pull of something calling her, a tug that was not physical but felt like an old memory awakening. She had never been beyond the fence. Now every step beyond it felt like claiming a life that had been stolen from her. Rain poured down her back, soaking her hair, her clothes, even the journal. But she held it close. She whispered, "I'm not hiding anymore." The path curved into a forest. The trees shivered and groaned in the storm winds, but Kala did not slow. Her feet splashed through puddles, slipped over roots, steadied again. Her breath came fast, but not from fear, from exhilaration. Freedom had a taste. It was sharp and cold and electric. Lightning struck again, closer this time. The white flash lit up her surroundings, bright enough that she caught a glimpse of her palm. The mark was glowing through the rain, brighter than she had ever seen it. The storm responded, almost bending around her with strange, protective currents. Her mother had been right. Her power did not answer to fear. It answered to purpose. And Kala finally had one. She would find the world her mother wrote about. She would discover what it meant to be a protector. She would no longer be a hidden child in a locked room. She reached the tree line, breathing hard, soaked to the bone. She turned once, not to look at the house, but to look at the village fading in the distance, swallowed by rain. It no longer owned her. Lightning tore across the sky again, illuminating the path ahead, deep into the forest toward whatever waited. Kala stepped forward without hesitation. The world swallowed her, not as a prisoner, but as someone finally claiming her place in it. The village lay in a bowl of cracked earth, its huts leaning like tired elders and its trees standing bare as bones. Kala had never seen a place so thirsty. Even the air felt brittle and every breath tasted like dust. Children sat outside their homes with lips cracked and eyes dull, too weak to play. Women carried empty gourds, clutching them the way people clutch hope when it grows thin. Men dug shallow pits in the soil, praying for a miracle that never came. Kala stepped into their midst, her shawl still damp from the storm she had escaped. The villagers stared at her, some with curiosity, others with suspicion. Strangers rarely wandered in during a season like this. Even birds had abandoned them. An elderly man with a bent back approached her slowly, leaning heavily on a stick. "Child," he rasped, "you walk as if you bring the wind with you. Where do you come from?" Kala hesitated. She had no home to claim, no family name she wished to speak. She simply answered, "From a place that no longer sees me." The old man studied her face, then looked down at her palm, the faint glow pulsing softly beneath the skin. His eyes widened, but not with fear. "With a mark like that," he whispered, "perhaps you were sent." A murmur rose among the people. Some stepped forward, drawn by the light in her hand. Others took a step back, unsure if they should bow or run. A woman holding a silent infant broke from the crowd. Her voice trembled. Do you know water?" she asked, as if afraid to hope. Kala did not know how to answer. She had never tried to use her gift in this way. All she knew was what her mother's journal had said, that protectors sense what the world hides. That they walk the boundary between danger and salvation. She looked at the dry ground beneath her feet. She felt the heat rising from it, the cry of a village on the edge of collapse. She closed her eyes, breathing in slowly, allowing the world to settle inside her chest. The mark on her palm warmed. A faint hum filled her ears, like distant singing beneath sand. Then she felt it, a thread beneath the earth, a pulse, a whisper of something imprisoned but alive. She opened her eyes. "I can try," she said. The villagers formed a circle around her as she walked to the center of the clearing. Children clutched their mothers' wraps. Men folded their arms, their expressions dipped in a mixture of doubt and desperate belief. Kala lowered her palm toward the earth. The glow brightened. The hum grew louder. It vibrated through her bones. "Here," she murmured. The old man shuffled closer. "Are you certain?" "Yes." The villagers dug with trembling hands at the spot she indicated. They dug through hard soil, through stone, through layers of earth baked rigid by months of merciless sun. Sweat poured from their brows. Some muttered prayers. Others feared disappointment would crush them beyond repair. Kala knelt, placing her glowing hand upon the ground. "Come," she whispered, not to the villagers but to the pulse beneath. A moment passed. Then another. Then the ground shifted. A soft crack broke through the silence. At first it seemed like nothing, just one small fracture, a tiny sound. But it grew. The earth trembled beneath their feet, and then water burst upward in a thin, shimmering spout. Gasps erupted around her. The trickle became a stream. The stream became a flow. The flow became a small fountain of cool, clear water rising from the ground like a blessing long withheld. Children screamed with joy and ran toward it. Mothers fell to their knees, scooping the water into trembling hands. Old men wept openly. Laughter and sobbing mixed in the air like the first rain after a long dry season. Kala stepped back, overwhelmed. People reached for her hands, for her clothes, for her shoulders, not to restrain her but to thank her. To touch the girl who had given them life again. Voices rose all around her. She brought the water. The marked girl. No, learn her name. She saved us, Kala. 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 The name echoed through the village like a drumbeat. They lit a fire that night, not out of fear but celebration. Food was shared though there was little. Music rose from tired hands that found energy again. Children danced in the light, their feet striking patterns of gratitude into the earth. Kala sat beside the new well, watching the water shimmer beneath the moonlight. The old man joined her, settling slowly beside her. "You carry a gift the world forgot," he said softly. "A gift that should have been honored, not hidden." Kala swallowed, her voice small. "My family feared me. Then they were blind." He touched the ground near the well. "Do you see this? Life came back because you dared to step into the world." Kala looked at her palm, faintly glowing under the moon. For the first time the light didn't feel like a burden, it felt like belonging. "You are a protector," the old man continued. "And the world has been waiting." The villagers gathered around her once more, forming a circle of warm faces and grateful eyes. They began chanting her name again, not out of superstition but out of reverence. Kala felt something deep inside her shift, something quiet and powerful. The years of hiding, of being dimmed, of being locked away, all of it cracked open like dry earth touched by water. She had stepped into the world alone. But tonight the world stepped toward her. And it remembered her name. The wind carried whispers. At first they were soft, drifting like smoke from distant villages, but they grew louder with each passing day, until even the walls of the house that had trapped Kala seemed to shake under their weight. Her stepfamily, who had once moved with confidence, now lived in constant tremor, as though the very air judged them. Menka's hands shook as she rifled through drawers and boxes, searching for the journal she had hidden so carefully, the one Kala had discovered. Every page she burned turned to ash in seconds, but she noticed that some words clung to the smoke, glowing faintly before disappearing into the night. No matter how she tried, she could not erase the truth. Rena sat across the room, pale and wide-eyed, watching her mother destroy evidence, as if the act itself might undo what had already happened. "Mother, it's too late," she whispered, voice trembling. "The world already knows." Menka slammed the last book shut, knocking over an oil lamp. The fire flared dangerously close to the floorboards. She cursed, snatched it up, and threw it into the hearth, but the flames seemed almost reluctant to consume the paper, flickering around the edges instead of devouring it completely. It was as if the house itself refused to comply with her command. Outside, villagers passed word along roads and through forests. Travelers spoke of a girl with glowing hands, a protector born to light the shadows. Every telling added layers to the story. She healed the sick, found water in drought, guided lost children safely home. Every act, every rumor magnified her presence. Kala's name no longer belonged to her, it belonged to the world. At night, Menka and Rena huddled by the window, watching shadows move in the moonlight. Every flicker of light made them jump. Every whisper of wind sounded like someone speaking Kala's name. It haunted them. Where once they had thought hiding her would erase the problem, now it only magnified it. "They speak of her like she is a goddess," Rena said, her voice cracking. "The villages chant her name. Our neighbors, they look at us with suspicion." Menka's lips tightened into a thin line. "We raised her. We controlled her. And still," her hands shook. "And still the world calls her hero." The panic settled over the house like a storm. Doors were bolted, windows barred, Servants instructed to deny even knowing Kala existed. Menka burned letters, erased records and tried to rewrite history in her own image. Witnesses were threatened into silence. But everywhere they turned, her name echoed. It became impossible to hide. Every village she passed through repeated it, each time louder, stronger, more reverent. Kala, the firebender. Kala, the one who walks with spirits. Kala, the girl who cannot be contained. Rena whispered through tears, "They call us cruel. They blame us for hiding her, for taking her from the world. They say we are afraid of her." Menka's eyes darted around the room. Every sound outside, the rustle of leaves, the crack of a branch, the murmur of distant voices, felt like an accusation. "We must move everything," she said. "Burn every trace, lock every secret, remove every witness." It was a futile effort. The villagers' faith in Kala grew stronger with every act of desperation from the Steppe family. Stories of her deeds reached places Menka and Rena had never even imagined. Her name was now a blessing, a talisman for those in need. It carried warmth and hope, while the Steppe family remained trapped in shadows of their own fear. One evening, Menka overheard merchants in the square whispering, "The girl who was hidden has become the protector of the valley. They say her Steppe family lives in terror of her name." She froze, her hands gripping the edge of the window frame until her knuckles whitened. Rena, standing behind her, gasped softly. The panic became unbearable. Menka realized that the more she tried to erase Kala's existence, the louder the world reminded her that Kala had never belonged to them. Not to their control, not to their fear, and certainly not to their cruelty. Every story, every witness, every whisper was proof that the world would not allow a hero to be hidden. Menka fell to her knees, clutching her hair. Why can't it stop? Rena crouched beside her mother, shaking. It won't stop. You can't burn her name. You can't erase what she has done. Outside, a faint glow shimmered on the horizon, carried by the wind. It wasn't a fire, not really, but something softer, alive, like a signal that Kala was near, or that her presence was reaching even this place. The Steppe family felt it through the walls. Their fear became tangible, pressing into their chests like a heavy stone. No matter how much they tried, no matter how many journals they destroyed, no matter how many witnesses they silenced, the world had already claimed her. Kala's name had grown wings. And soon it would arrive where it needed to go, whether they liked it or not. In the darkness, Menka whispered to herself, almost a prayer, almost a confession, "The world remembers her. And we are forgotten." And indeed, the world already spoke her name, not with fear but with awe. Kala was no longer hidden. Her story had begun to ripple outward, unstoppable, and the Steppe family's panic was the first acknowledgement that the girl they tried to bury had become larger than their fear. Kala stepped onto the familiar path leading to the house she had once called a prison. The mud was soft from recent rains, the air alive with birdsong and the distant chatter of villagers. Yet beneath the sounds of life, there was tension, a quiet hum of expectation that seemed to ripple through the trees. She did not rush. She walked with a measured grace, the kind that comes from surviving storms, both literal and the ones of the heart. Behind her, the villagers followed, a growing procession of faces bright with hope and respect. Children clutched their parents' hands, craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the girl whose name had become a song in their homes. Mothers whispered blessings, and even the elders, stooped with age and burden, nodded in recognition. Everywhere she walked, the earth seemed to respond to her steps, humming softly as if acknowledging her presence. Her stepmother, Menka, stood at the doorway, her hands trembling. The moment Kala appeared in the distance, the woman's face paled, and she gripped the railing as though it were the last anchor to a sinking ship. For years, Menka had believed she had buried Kala's existence, suppressing her, keeping her in the shadows, hiding her from the world. She had told herself the child would remain small, fearful, and forgotten. But the truth had grown beyond walls and lies. The child she tried to erase had become something far greater. Kala paused a few steps from the house, letting the wind and the gaze of the villagers wash over her. Her palm glowed faintly, a soft light reflecting the power and purpose that had been nurtured within her, even in the darkest corners. She did not shout. She did not strike or threaten. There was no need. Her presence alone carried the weight of justice, of survival, of truth. The villagers parted instinctively, forming a path of honor. Some knelt, some bowed their heads, and some simply stared with wide eyes, understanding that they were witnessing a moment that would be remembered for generations. Each of them whispered her name, softly at first, then louder, as if speaking it aloud gave it more power. Kala. 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 Inside the house the air was thick with fear. Rena stepped back, her usual sneer faltering. She had spent her life walking in the shadow of a child she believed she had broken, only to find that the shadow had grown taller than herself. Menka's knees weakened and she sank onto a chair, clutching the edge like it could hold her from the truth she had tried so hard to deny. Every lie she had told, every attempt to hide Kala, every journal she burned, it had all been in vain. Kala raised her head, meeting Menka's wide, disbelieving eyes. She did not speak immediately. She let the silence stretch, heavy with all the years of hiding, suffering and learning. She let Menka feel the weight of her presence, the quiet force of a life that had been denied but refused to be erased. Finally she spoke. Her voice was steady, calm, carrying the resonance of storms she had survived and the whispers of people whose lives she had saved. One sentence, simple, unadorned, yet carrying the force of an entire history. You hid me, but the world remembered me. The words hung in the air, vibrating like a chord struck perfectly. Menka could not move, could not respond. She had been certain that suppression would win. She had been certain that fear could erase a life. She realized now that the child she tried to bury had grown roots that could not be severed, branches that stretched beyond her reach, leaves that whispered in every village about the girl who had refused to remain hidden. Around them, the villagers erupted in quiet celebration. They did not shout or scream violently. Instead, they clapped, they smiled, they cheered in ways that felt sacred. Their voices carried not anger, but recognition. Kala had returned not to punish but to stand tall, a beacon of all they had witnessed and believed. The wind shifted as she walked, brushing through the open windows and rustling curtains, as if carrying her triumph into every corner of the house. Her stepmother's attempts to regain control faltered with every step Kala took. No journal, no threat, no lie could stop the truth that had walked out into the world and come back in full force. Menka's face reflected the full weight of her failure, the awareness that she had underestimated not a child but a force of destiny. Kala stopped at the threshold, the glowing mark on her palm brightening for a moment, a signal not of anger but of power realized. The villagers, now gathered at her feet, watched in reverent silence. The house itself seemed to lean back, acknowledging the girl who had returned as more than a child, more than a shadow. It recognized a protector, a living testament to resilience and truth. She stepped forward, crossed the threshold, and the house seemed to shrink around her. It could not contain her anymore. Not fear, not lies, not walls. She had returned, but she had not returned for revenge. She had returned to claim her rightful place, to stand in the light, and to show that no one could erase what the world would always remember. And everywhere she walked, her name followed, carried by wind, whispered by the people, and sung by those who understood the strength it took to survive. Kala, the girl who had been hidden and yet had returned as the world's remembered flame. Kala walked along the edge of the village, her palm glowing faintly in the morning sun, the light soft but unmistakable. The air smelled of wet earth and beginnings. Children ran ahead, their laughter carrying like a melody, weaving through the thatched huts and dusty streets. But these were no ordinary children. They were gifted, like she had been, born with sparks in their hands, whispers of power, and the weight of destinies waiting to be fulfilled. Kala had chosen to teach them, to guide them not with force, but with understanding. Each day she gathered the children beneath the great baobab at the center of the village. Its wide branches stretched like protective arms, offering shade and comfort. The children listened in awe as she spoke of fire not just as destruction, but as revelation, as the light that exposes truth. Her voice was gentle yet firm, carrying the weight of all she had endured, the lessons she had learned in the shadows, and the fire that had carried her through storms both literal and emotional. "You have a gift," she told them one afternoon as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with orange and crimson streaks. "A gift that can heal, protect, and illuminate. But remember, it is not a gift to hide. It is a gift to use. To see what others cannot. To speak when others tremble. To shine even when the world tries to cage you." The children nodded, their eyes wide. Some traced the faint marks on their own palms, discovering the soft warmth, the quiet pulse that had always seemed like a secret. And yet, under Kala's guidance, the secret was no longer theirs alone. It was a power that needed to be known, respected, and shared. Stories of her deeds spread further now, beyond the villages she had once saved. Bards traveled with songs of the girl with the glowing hand, the child who had been hidden but returned to stand like a mountain above fear and cruelty. Merchants whispered her name in distant towns, mothers spoke it to their daughters as a blessing, fathers invoked it as a protective charm. "Kala," they said. "Kala, the fire-bearer. Kala, the one who cannot be erased. She visited the neighboring villages, bringing water to the drought-stricken, medicine to the sick, guidance to the lost. Every act became legend. Every village she touched carried her name like a banner of hope. She did not seek fame, nor did she demand loyalty. Her name became a symbol not because she wanted it to, but because the world could not ignore the life she had chosen to live, the fire she had cultivated in her heart. Even her stepfamily's fear, once palpable and suffocating, had transformed into whispers of awe and disbelief. They watched from afar, no longer daring to hide, no longer able to silence her story. Kala had become more than their failure. They had, through their attempts to cage her, only amplified her presence. Every child she taught, every village she aided, every story sung by traveling bards, cemented her legacy. Kala took special care with the children she mentored. She showed them how to listen to the land, to hear the whispers of the winds, the pulse of water beneath the soil, the secrets carried by the leaves in the forest. She taught them that power without purpose was empty, that fire without guidance could destroy as easily as it could protect. And through her teachings, the next generation grew brave, compassionate, and wise, children who would carry her lessons into the world, spreading light in places where shadows had once dominated. At night, when the village slept, Kala would stand alone on the hill overlooking the settlements, watching the glow of lanterns and fires. She felt the rhythm of her own heart, the pulse of the earth, and the quiet reverence of all she had survived. She remembered the cage of her stepfamily's home, the days she had spent hidden, the fears she had conquered. And she knew that every whisper of doubt, every attempt to bury her, had only strengthened the flame within her. Stories about her were written into songs, carved into stones, and painted in murals along village walls. Her name became a legend not just as a person but as an idea, a symbol of resilience, courage, and the power to rise from suppression. People told children about the girl who had been hidden, who had returned, and who had taught the world to see and honor the fire within themselves. She walked among the villagers during festivals, quietly observing the joy her presence brought. Children called out to her, reaching for her hand, wanting to feel the warmth of the light that had changed their lives. She smiled, softly, knowing that the world no longer needed to hide its truths. The stories she had lived were now woven into the fabric of the villages, alive in laughter, in whispered names, and in the hearts of those she had touched. Kala knew the world had once tried to cage her, to silence her, to make her invisible. But no cage could hold fire. No walls could dim her light. No fear could erase her legacy. And so, she became more than just a girl who had been hidden. She became the spark that ignited hope in countless hearts. As she stood beneath the starlit sky, feeling the quiet hum of the earth beneath her feet and the pulse of life in her palm, she whispered to herself, almost as a promise. They hid me from the world, but the world remembered my name louder than any cage they built around me. And indeed, everywhere her story traveled, the world did remember, because Kala had become the fire everyone needed to see.